This story is about a guy who desperately wants to protect the love of his life, which unexpectedly turns out to be his clan leader. The hero, our main character, spent his current life as the weakest member of the demonic clan, despite once having been the strongest hero who saved the world in a previous life. He had been granted a unique power and the rare opportunity to be resurrected twice. Yet, he chose to live this life in weakness, until the day came when he witnessed the death of the clan leader, a woman he secretly admired, betrayed by her own husband. In that moment, he chose to die beside her, but not before asking her one question. If they were given another chance at life, how could he win her heart? After she gave him her answer, he made a vow. In his next life, he would use his power to take revenge and protect the clan leader, no matter the cost. Our story begins within the demon sect, currently under siege by the Merm. The sect's soldiers are putting up their best resistance to keep the Union from breaching the inner gates. The scene shifts to our protagonist, Yumyong, who is rushing toward the palace where the sect leader resides. He reports that the Merm has dispatched over 10,000 fighters. A man notices him and appears surprised to see him at such a dangerous time. That man's name is Sandojin. He approaches Yumyong and demands to know why he's walking around unguarded in a battlefield, urging him to follow at once. Yumyong responds that he's heading to the leader's palace. She had remained there after ordering her people to flee as fast as they could. Sandojin replies grimly, saying the situation is critical. At this rate, the defensive line won't last more than an hour, so Yumyong should seek safety at once. But Yumyong insists that he'll come back, but first, he needs to know what the leader is thinking. Realizing he can't stop him, Sandojin lets him go. Yumyong runs off, leaving him behind, and takes a deep breath, murmuring to himself that his life has been nothing but miserable. When he reaches the palace doors, he calls out, asking if the leader is still inside. Hearing no reply, he raises his voice, shouting that he's at the door and begging her to open it. Then her voice responds, telling him he may enter. He's truly stunned. He hadn't expected her to respond at all. As he places his hand on the door, about to push it open, he wonders if she overheard his earlier words, which may have come across as disrespectful. Nervously, he explains that he didn't mean any offense, he was simply overwhelmed by the situation. Then he shoves the door open with all his strength, admitting it was incredibly heavy and that a guard should have stayed by the leader's side at the very least. Once inside, he catches his breath. The leader, her body visibly weakened, tells him that his combat abilities are still below those of a third-level fighter. Still panting, he jokes that he's just relieved no one else saw how much he struggled to open the door. She nods slightly and notes that if any elders had heard how he spoke to her, he would have been in serious trouble, implying she'd heard everything. He bows to her in respect. It's then we learn the leader's name, Yura. She asks why the sect's weakest member has come seeking her. He responds by asking why she's still here at all. Still sweating, she explains it's because of the poison. Yumyong becomes furious, demanding to know whether the one who did this to her was the traitorous sect leader. That man's name is Han Mobayak, the very man Yura had personally chosen as her husband. But he had betrayed her, opened the sect's gates to the Murim Union, and became the leader of the defectors. Yura, filled with sorrow, says Han Mobayak told her he had suffered greatly just to get close to her. He had earned her trust and her heart. The reason he poisoned her, he said, was so she could feel just a fraction of the pain he had endured. Upon hearing this, Yumyong covers his mouth, trying to suppress any sound, his face twisting with rage. Seeing this, Yura smiles and says he really is an interesting person. But Yumyong tells her there's no time for that kind of talk. He remarks that she had always been serious, confident, and strict in every sense, but even in her final moments, she had managed to smile. Then he asks whether it's already too late for her to recover from the poison. She replies that it likely is. The toxin has reached her energy core. She adds that she could have countered any other poison, but this specific type is the only one she couldn't resist. Yumyong calls out her name and keeps repeating the word if over and over. This angers Yura. She warns him that if she hears him say if one more time, she'll pull his tongue out and demands that he get to the point. Summoning his courage, he asks, if she had the chance to come back to life, what would she do? Yura is stunned by the question. Yumyong chuckles and reminds her that he brought this up before, that in his past life, he had saved the world. She reacts with disbelief, saying she can't picture someone like him saving the world. He tells her to just pretend it's true and once more asks, what would she do if the chance still existed? She questions why he's so set on giving her hope, saying that if such a chance did exist, he should already be chasing it. He responds that the first thing she should know about him is that he can't stand betrayal. And the second is that this is his way of repaying her for what she once did for him. Yura looks puzzled. She has no idea what debt he's referring to. Smiling, he tells her not to think too hard about it. He recalls that their first meeting was back when he was one of the candidates to become her husband. Yura returns his smile, a hope flickering across her face, and asks what he would do if she really came back. He says that even if she wouldn't remember any of this, he now knows every traitor who infiltrated the sect, along with the Merm Union that dared to attack them. He swears to use every bit of his power to destroy them, without exception. Then he asks if she has any final wish, promising to remember and do all he can to make it come true. But Yura's reply catches him completely off guard. She tells him that she wants him to try seducing her. Yumyong is utterly shocked. He says he's confident he can stop Han Mobaek and prevent him from becoming the demon sect's leader, but as for becoming her husband, that he's not so sure about. He adds that he knows she doesn't love him. She had told him before that a close relationship between them was impossible, that love requires mutual desire. He reminds her that ever since she became the demon sect's leader, she became someone no one could challenge. She crushed anyone who dared to propose to her. The only reason Han Mobaek became the sect leader was because he was the only one who could tolerate her temperament. Yura responded that he didn't have to do anything he didn't want to. But Yumyong said he never claimed her request was impossible. He stepped in closer, and she looked visibly flustered by his approach. He told her that romantic feelings often arise when one person cares for someone who doesn't return those feelings. Then he smiled and said that since the request came from her, it wouldn't be difficult for him at all. Yura blushed deeply, unable to conceal her embarrassment. Yumyong looked at her intently and remarked that her features were truly beautiful. Then he asked for just one promise. He wanted her forgiveness if he had ever spoken poorly of her in the past. Dropping to his knees, he held her hands and told her that if she had any weaknesses, she should share them with him so he could use them once he returned to the past. But she looked visibly annoyed and warned him that if their conversation leaked in any way, she would make sure he paid dearly. She added that she would only say what needed to be said once, and he had better listen carefully. After she shared all her vulnerabilities, Yumyong burst out laughing, saying she must have been something special back then. That irritated Yura, and she demanded that he be quiet. Calling his name sternly, she told him their conversation was over. The intruders had already reached her palace, and she offered him a peaceful death if he wished. But he refused. With a smile, he said he wanted to witness everything to the very end. Just then, the leader of the Merm Union, Guan Haiyan, approached them, saying he never imagined he would live to see the demon sect fall before his eyes. Yumyong responded that Guan Haiyan had arrived with a traitor. Guan Haiyan laughed and said he was well aware of that. He gestured toward Han Mobaek and announced that his current title was the Sacred Heavenly Dragon and that he had borne disgrace for the sake of Janju. Yumyong laughed loudly at the title and said he couldn't believe Han Mobaek had become a Merm lapdog with such a name. He insulted him outright, declaring that it was time for them to pay for their sins. Yura, still drenched in sweat, responded mockingly, saying that her beloved husband had finally returned to her. Han Mobaek replied that everything he had done was for Janju. Yura answered coldly, saying his actions had been for that society that dares to defy the heavens. Everyone around them was stunned by her words. It was the first time Yumyong had heard of such a society. Han Mobaek panicked and shouted to everyone, warning them not to be deceived by the words of this witch, claiming she was simply trying to sow chaos in her final moments. The Merm soldiers believed him, saying no one should trust a demon's words, that she would say anything to save her life. Han Mobaek then said there was no need to fight her one by one, they should all attack at once. Yura shouted back that even while poisoned, she could handle the likes of them with ease and without anyone's help. Guan Haiyan mocked her, saying she spoke with far too much confidence. But suddenly a tremendous surge of energy burst from Yura's body. She was ready to face them. The Merm soldiers were stunned that she still possessed such power despite the poison. Sensing danger, Guan Haiyan ordered his men to attack immediately, and so the battle began. Yura, leader of the demon sect, against the Merm Union forces. After a fierce fight, Yumyong woke up from the blackout he had slipped into during combat. Yura called out to him, saying she had feared he might have died. He was shaken by her deteriorating condition, but she continued, saying she was glad she had lived long enough to say goodbye. She added that the Merm forces had retreated after she activated her self-destruction technique. Then she looked at him and saw that he was crying. She asked him why, and he replied that he was overwhelmed with sorrow. Despite her body being riddled with wounds and pierced by swords, she stepped closer to him and asked if he would now keep his promise and try to win her over instead of Han Mob. Yumyong, still crying, assured her that he would keep that promise no matter what it cost him. Yura laughed softly and told him she was glad to hear those words from him. Then she collapsed and he rushed toward her, sobbing uncontrollably. He said those were his final moments in this life. His first life hadn't been that bad. He had saved humanity and earned the title Guardian of Earth. As a reward, the ruler had granted him 3 privileges, including the ability to be revived twice more. He had originally planned to enjoy a carefree life. But after everything that had happened, he decided to dedicate this final life solely to Yura. When he awoke, he found his servant Joe Chill standing in front of him with a tray of food. He was stunned. One look at Joe Chill's youthful face and he realized he had gone back in time many years into the past. He watched as Joe Chill placed large amounts of food on the table, and at that moment he heard a voice in his head. It told him that he now clearly remembered the exact point in time he had returned to. He was 17 again, just before he would head to the demon sect tower and become known as the carefree playboy of the demonic bird. But fear took hold of him when he saw his father standing before him. His father was furious at his behavior, including drinking, even though he hadn't yet reached the age of initiation. His father struck him hard, dragged him back home, and held up the liquor bottle, yelling that he couldn't believe the eldest son of the Yen family couldn't even resist alcohol. His father's name was Jin Jan, head of the family, and he looked at Yumyong with clear disappointment, calling him a pitiful boy. Yumyong quickly moved toward him, trying to explain what had happened. But his father ordered him to be silent, saying he didn't want to hear a word from someone so weak. He added that if someone chose to be weak, they should at least be clever. Then he asked if Yumyong understood why he had personally come to bring him back home. Yumyong thought to himself that last time he hadn't answered and got beaten for it, so this time he replied that it was likely due to the upcoming meeting with the new leader of the demon sect. That meeting was with Yura, who at the time was also 17, along with the heirs of the 6 major demonic energy clans. It was a critical event to determine the next leader of the sect. But in his past life, none of the 6 heirs were chosen. Instead, Yura selected the traitor Han Mobaek during that event. Nervously, and with his father standing nearby, Yumyong whispered to himself that this would not happen again. His father responded that the only reason he had tolerated someone so talentless in the family until now was for this exact moment. Yumyong reflected internally that Jin Jan was a harsh father, one who used his sons solely for the glory of the clan. Then, when asked whether he could win the heart of the sect leader before the other heirs, Yumyong confidently responded that the other heirs didn't stand a chance. His father, pleased by the answer, smiled and told him that if he didn't want to bring shame to their name, he should at least improve a bit and begin learning martial arts. With that, he left. As soon as he was gone, Yumyong took a deep breath, saying he hadn't expected his father to be the first person he'd see after returning to the past. He added that this moment in time was exactly what he had hoped for, not 10 years in the past, but 20, which gave him countless opportunities to make the most of. Then he recalled Yura's words about the society that defies the heavens, saying this group must still be active in the present timeline. With growing anger, he vowed to hunt them down and wipe them out completely. Jo-chan asked Yumyong what he planned to do now. Yumyong replied with a question of his own, asking what Jo meant by that. Jo reminded him that just moments ago he had boldly responded to his father and declared that he would become the future husband of the demon sect leader. Yumyong was surprised and asked when he had ever said anything like that. Jo insisted that's exactly what he had just said, but Yumyong objected, explaining he had never claimed he'd be her husband, he had only said the other heirs would be rejected. Jo looked puzzled and told him that it meant the same thing, but Yumyong corrected him, saying the 2 statements were very different. He added that, at this point in her life, Yura was impossible to win over. She was entirely obsessed with mastering martial arts and wouldn't waste a moment with someone weaker than herself. Just then, a young man approached, saying he hadn't expected Yumyong to still be here. Yumyong tried to remember who he was, then realized it was Male, the second son of the Blood Dragon clan. Male walked up with an irritated tone and asked if Yumyong saw any resemblance between him and someone else. Yumyong said he didn't, and asked if he was so excited that he came alone without bringing Yonghai. Male snapped, saying he didn't have a younger sister by that name. He then announced that he had come to challenge Yumyong to a duel. Yumyong was confused. This had never happened in his past life. He wondered if it was because his father hadn't hit him like last time. So now something unexpected was unfolding. The demon sect was governed by 6 major clans in addition to the sect itself, and among them, the relationship between Yumyong's clan and the Blood Dragon clan was the worst of all. Yumyong replied that interclan conflicts were strictly forbidden. Male said that this time was an exception. Yumyong asked what kind of exception he was talking about, thinking to himself that unless it involved a matter of clan survival or an official duel, then it must concern the main clan Cheon. He then asked if this was because of the demon sect leader. Male confirmed it, adding that if he lost this duel, he would withdraw from the sect leader engagement ceremony. Yumyong remembered that Male's younger brother was also a participant in that ceremony. With a mocking tone, he agreed to the madness and pushed further, asking if his brother was so weak that he needed to eliminate the competition just to stand a chance. Male grew furious, but Yumyong continued, saying there was no need to push himself unless he wanted to turn the match into an all-out conflict between the 2 clans. Enraged, Male lunged at him, yelling at him not to mock him. Seeing his intention, Joe placed a hand on his sword, ready to intervene if needed, but Yumyong stopped him, instructing him not to interfere under any circumstances. He thought to himself that this would be the first time he used his special ability, an awakening of the senses he had possessed in his first life as humanity's savior. The scene then shifted to Joe Chun, who was extremely worried. He told Yumyong that he didn't even know martial arts. How could he possibly face someone like Male? Yumyong continued thinking to himself, acknowledging that while his awakened senses might not be enough to face the leader of the Blood Dragon clan, things were entirely different when the opponent was just a young man. He then easily gripped the blade and thought that, right now, all he wanted was to crush Male. Joe Chun was stunned when he saw Yumyong assume a perfect stance and block the strike without a single error. After deflecting Male's sword, Yumyong kicked him hard. Joe Chun was amazed at how quickly and effortlessly Male had been defeated, especially considering that just yesterday Yumyong had been a careless youth with no skills or martial arts experience. Yumyong then called out to the hidden spectators and told them to take Male away. He warned them that Male would likely be in shock when he woke up, so they had better stop him from causing trouble unless, of course, they wanted him going around telling people how brutally he'd been beaten. They agreed to do as he asked, but just before leaving, he added one final thing. He reminded them that he had shown restraint and avoided leaving any visible marks. Inwardly, he thought that even a rumor about the heir of the Jin clan defeating the heir of the Ma clan would be disastrous, and he wasn't going to let that happen. The scene shifted to Yumyong's return to the clan residence, where all the members had gathered to welcome him back. The head steward asked if he had enjoyed his brief trip with his friends. Yumyong replied that it was hard to give a straight answer, as he couldn't exactly tell anyone that his father had come to fetch him personally, though the steward surely already knew that. Jokingly, he added that the steward could be quite blunt sometimes. The steward smiled and replied that he had simply been concerned for his health. Yumyong told him to forget about it and requested access to the training room. The steward was stunned and asked if he truly intended to start learning martial arts. Other clan members were also surprised, wondering if he was serious about training. He assured them he wasn't joking and asked them to fetch specific martial arts scrolls from the clan's library. He began listing the scrolls he wanted, recalling how his teacher once told him that mastering those skills would make him unbeatable. Back then, he had replied that those scrolls weren't originals but just copies. His teacher had explained that those techniques never had a chance to shine because they had ended up in the hands of Jin clan members who were obsessed solely with brute strength. After obtaining the scrolls, Yumyong noted that he was able to access them only because the library hadn't yet burned down. It would be destroyed in 4 years. He explained that the Jin clan's fighting style focused heavily on punches and kicks, which didn't suit him. However, he had natural talent, sharp intuition, and a strong foundation of internal energy. He added that while he might never meet his teacher again, in this life he would become the fighter his master had always hoped for. He then remembered the promise he had made to the demon sect leader about seducing her. But with a sense of sadness, he admitted that he couldn't fulfill it just yet. His current abilities simply weren't enough to earn her favor. He said he would need 5 years, 5 full years spent in complete isolation, dedicating himself entirely to mastering martial arts. Once he became stronger, he would personally hunt down the wretches from the society that defied the heavens, eliminating them one by one. That way, when the time came for Yura to rise as the leader of the demon sect, no one would ever be able to threaten her rule again. 2 weeks later, the scene shifts to Yum-Yong walking alongside his servant, Jo-Chil, who appeared annoyed at how slowly Yum-Yong was moving. Yum-Yong explained that since he would be the last in line anyway, there was no reason to rush. When they reached the gate and the guards opened it, they voiced their irritation at his extremely late arrival. Jo-Chil reminded him that this event was being hosted by the Cha-On clan, the main clan, and that such behavior was unacceptable. Yum-Yong calmly replied that if anything went wrong, he would handle it himself. He then recalled how, after failing at the engagement ceremony in his past life, his father had locked him up for an entire year. Suddenly, someone came flying through the air in front of them. Yum-Yong chuckled, saying it was quite an intense greeting, while Jo-Chil remarked that it looked like someone had just been thoroughly beaten. As the smoke cleared, a figure in red robes appeared. It was Ma-Yun, the younger brother of Male from the Blood Dragon clan. They heard Yura's voice calling out to Ma-Yun, saying he seemed like he might be useful to her. She asked if he still had the strength to continue fighting. Ma-Yun quickly got to his feet and ran toward her, claiming he still had enough energy left. At that moment, Yum-Yong's eyes met Yura's. He looked visibly disturbed, thinking to himself that, unfortunately, he hadn't arrived as late as he had hoped. Meanwhile, Jo-Chil was close to losing his temper and asked how he could joke around at a time like this. Yum-Yong replied that he only wanted to enjoy the show. He remembered that in the previous timeline, Ma-Yun had been defeated by Yura with a single strike and disappeared afterward. But this time, something felt different. As Ma-Yun launched a full-force attack at Yura, she blocked it effortlessly. With excitement, she commented that his skill level was better than she had expected. Yum-Yong was surprised, wondering whether Ma-Yun had really become this strong. But before he could think any further, Ma-Yun was already lying on the ground. His servants rushed to check on him, and even while lying there, he called out to Yum-Yong. Yum-Yong was puzzled by the gesture. Then, Ma-Yun declared that he would never lose to him. Turning back to Yura, he told her that it had been an honor to fight her. She replied that she hoped his level would improve the next time they met. Yum-Yong found the entire exchange strange, thinking Ma-Yun should have been dismissed immediately. Yura then ordered Ma-Yun to head to the medical center for treatment. He lit up with joy at her words, but as he walked past Yum-Yong, he shot him a glare filled with hostility. Yum-Yong was taken aback. This was their first meeting in this life, so he couldn't understand the animosity. Yura then approached him and called out, saying she had been waiting for him for quite some time. Yum froze upon hearing her voice and was stunned to realize that she had truly been expecting him. She pointed her sword at him and remarked that Ma-Yun had shown decent skill. She added that since he had defeated Ma-Yun's older brother, he was supposed to be much stronger. It was then that Yum-Yong understood the reason behind Ma-Yun's glare. Yura went on, saying that if he failed to meet her expectations, she would be very disappointed. Yum-Yong commented that the real problem with the demon sect was their tendency to resolve everything through brute force. Suddenly, Yura launched a swift attack aimed directly at his head. From the start, he had thought this was supposed to be a sparring match, but now it seemed like she was actually trying to kill him. That's when he realized how lenient she had been with Ma-Yun. She continued her assault, swinging her sword with serious intent. He shouted at her, calling her a madwoman, and begged her to calm down a bit. Yura was deeply offended when Yum-Yong called her a madwoman. He quickly tried to fix what he said, assuring her that he hadn't meant it like that. But Yura showed no sign of understanding. She told him that since he had used such a word, he would now have to face the edge of her sword. Yum-Yong began retreating, blocking her strikes as best he could. But the more he defended, the more irritated Yura became. He grew nervous as he noticed sparks flying and her rage intensifying. Suddenly, she lunged at him, shouting and demanding to know how he dared to hide his true power all this time. Yum-Yong panicked. He had no idea how she figured out that he was holding back. Then, to his shock, she unleashed her sword aura. He realized that while she had only defended against Ma-Yun earlier, she was now fighting him seriously, using her sword aura in full force. The blow was so powerful that it sent him flying. He crashed to the ground and Yura walked toward him, saying she knew he was just pretending to be defeated to hide his real strength. Still furious, she demanded that he stop pretending and fight seriously. Yum-Yong, trying to sound pitiful, replied that he never faked his fights and had already used all the strength he had. But Yura grew even more frustrated, asking why he kept denying that he was holding back. In his mind, Yumyong recalled their encounter from his previous life, telling himself that he hadn't faked anything, he simply didn't care about winning this fight. At that moment, Yura unleashed an even fiercer wave of sword aura, declaring that if he was trying to deceive her, she wouldn't hesitate to kill him, just like it seemed he wanted. Joe, watching nearby, trembled in fear for his master's life. He thought that if Yumyong failed to block this next attack, he would surely die. Yura then charged at him with everything she had. Yumyong responded by using every technique he had learned to defend himself. To his surprise, he managed to block every one of her strikes. When Yura stepped back for a moment, Yumyong couldn't believe he had survived her onslaught, though his sword was still shaking in his grip. But Yura quickly laughed and told him he hadn't blocked anything at all. He was stunned, realizing just how outmatched he truly was. Despite being only 18, Yura was already capable of using advanced sword aura. He had always known she was far ahead of her peers, but to have reached such a level at her age was nearly unthinkable. He shut his eyes, bracing himself for the final blow. But when he opened them again, he realized he was still alive. He heard a sharp voice scolding Yura, saying she had lost control of her emotions and had nearly killed the boy with that last attack. Yumyong was stunned when he saw the man behind the voice. He immediately bowed. It was Taizong, the former clan leader. Taizong continued speaking to Yura, warning her that she had nearly sparked a holy war between the clans. Yumyong noted that Taizong was the third person in the sect's long history to hold the title of Supreme Sovereign. He was also the 28th leader of the sect and its current Grand Elder. Taizong told Yura that if a holy war broke out with the Jin clan, their allies would immediately intervene. At that point, the sect's forces would be scattered and the Merm Alliance would be waiting for just such a moment to strike. Yumyong thought to himself that Taizong might have been exaggerating a bit, but he hadn't said anything untrue. He also added mentally that Yura probably didn't realize one crucial fact. His father, Jin Jian, the leader of the Jin clan, would never start a civil war just because he had lost hope in a son who ended up dead. Taizong asked Yura to apologize to Yumyong. It was clear that this request was incredibly difficult for her, but in the end, she had no choice but to obey. She gave him a reluctant apology, her face still filled with anger. Yum responded by saying it was nothing, as if nothing had happened. Inwardly, he muttered that he never imagined he'd see the day when the cold-hearted leader of the demon sect would apologize to anyone. Taizong then turned to Yumyong and said it seemed the Jin clan had raised a respectable heir, asking if he was the candidate the clan had sent. Yumyong respectfully replied that the clan had deemed him unfit and its leader had chosen to give the position of heir to his younger brother instead. Taizong was stunned by the answer and asked in disbelief how someone with his strength could be considered unfit, especially since he was certain Yumyong had used sword aura during his fight with Yura. Taizong scoffed and asked mockingly, "Can someone unqualified display that kind of power?" He asked again if Yumyong truly wasn't the clan's official heir. Yumyong insisted it was true, explaining that he was only here to fulfill what the Jin clan saw as its duty. Taizong replied that, in that case, he should see that duty through to the end, leaving Yumyong confused as he walked away. Taizong said that when the next exchange meeting was scheduled, the Jin clan would be notified. He added that he hoped Yumyong and Yura would get along better the next time they met. When he noticed Yumyong staying silent, he gave him a sharp look and asked why he wasn't answering. Yumyong replied respectfully that he understood, but inside he felt like his fate had just been sealed. As he walked off, Taizong muttered to himself that it had been a long time since he last met the Jin clan leader, perhaps it was time to visit and share a drink. After that, Yura told Yumyong that she knew he hated her and that was why he acted the way he did earlier. But he cut her off, telling her he didn't hate her at all. On the contrary, he said he admired her. He quickly clarified that it wasn't romantic admiration, it could be seen as respect. He added that his actions today had nothing to do with her personally. Yura asked him to relax a bit, saying that during exchange periods they were equals, so he didn't need to address her so formally. Yum was stunned and asked what she wanted him to call her. She didn't seem to have a clear answer. He told her he had a suggestion, he'd simply call her Yura from now on. The scene shifted to Yumyong leaving with Joe, who began praising him enthusiastically, saying his performance today was incredible and that his father would be thrilled when he heard the news. But Yumyong looked displeased, his plan to enter seclusion and train had clearly failed. Then, to his surprise, his brother Yunwoo appeared. Yumyong laughed and asked why he had come in person. Yunwoo replied that he had heard Yumyong went to the training room before heading to the young demon's hall. He added that he was sure Yumyong wasn't aiming for the heir position. Yum confirmed it and said he understood the rules well. Yunwoo responded that there was no rule preventing someone from building a relationship with the young leader of the demon sect. Then, nervously, he said he would never acknowledge Yumyong as his brother and that he didn't belong to the Jin clan. Seeing the rising tension, Jo Chil stepped in and tried to calm Yunwoo down, saying he'd gone too far and that Yumyong had shown incredible skill today. But Yunwoo exploded at him too, shouting that a former assassin had no right to meddle in a conversation between two heirs of the Jin clan. He insisted that matters like this should only involve those who carried the clan's pure blood. Yumyong looked visibly irritated by his brother's words, feeling like he had become a genuine nuisance to him. He thought to himself that he might need to raise his brother all over again. Yunwoo scoffed and laughed, saying he must be joking. But Yumyong silently decided that his younger brother, who would one day lead the clan, needed to learn how to show him proper respect. Yumyong snapped his fingers and said they had never fought before. Yunwoo immediately lunged at him, but Yumyong dodged easily. Furious, Yunwoo accused him of running away like a rat. Yumyong mockingly replied that the real problem was his brother's inability to land even a single hit. Yunwoo's anger exploded as he released his aura and threatened to kill him. Yumyong scolded him, asking how he could speak that way to his older brother and reminded him that it was his duty to show respect. He then said he was fighting him for 3 reasons. While dodging his strikes, he explained that the first reason was this: the Yunwoo had been selected as one of the 6 demon dragons. He needed to understand there would always be someone stronger. Then Yumyong landed a direct blow to his stomach and said the second reason was that Yunwoo had dared to insult the honor of the Jin clan, a clan he was meant to lead someday. The clan members watching were stunned, wondering when this once weak boy had become so powerful. After a thorough beating, Yunwoo apologized and said he'd take Yumyong's advice to heart. He added that losing today didn't mean he would accept the same outcome in their next match. But Yumyong stopped him, saying he hadn't even revealed the third reason yet. Yunwoo froze and nervously asked what it was. Yumyong replied with a chilling expression that the third reason was simple: Yunwoo had yet to learn what true respect for an older brother looked like. Yunwoo trembled and almost cried, admitting that he just didn't know how to express that respect. But Yumyong didn't stop until he'd finished disciplining him. The scene shifted to the Jin clan leader sipping his drink and telling Yumyong that the demon sect leader hadn't stopped praising him. He added that he had personally thanked him for sending someone with talent worthy of challenging his daughter. When Yumyong was asked if he wanted to become the clan's heir, he responded that he would rather Yunwoo retain that position as he had already proven his worth more clearly before the clan. He added that his own ambition was to serve the demon sect leader and stay by her side, aiming to elevate the clan's status through that role. The clan leader then remarked that he had never realized his son took such pride in their family. Yumyong replied that while other clans were busy fighting over heirs, he and his brother were focused on creating a solid foundation for the next generation, one that would make their clan the greatest among the 6. His father, clearly pleased by this vision, asked if Yumyong truly believed he could achieve it. Yumyong responded with confidence that he could. The clan leader smiled proudly and noted that his son had matured greatly in recent times, saying that as his father, he would now give him the support he deserved. He then asked if Yumyong had any specific wishes. Later, as Yumyong walked through the city, he reminded himself that since his plan to enter secluded training had fallen through, he now had to begin investigating the true identity of the society that defied the heavens. He believed the current leader of the demon sect ruled with tyranny, so the group must have been operating in secret. He began narrowing down the potential suspects, trying to figure out which of the great clans might be behind the organization, but he still had no definitive answers. He concluded that anything he uncovered during this investigation could become a valuable piece of leverage to use against Yura one day. Then he turned to find his brother quietly following him and asked why he'd been trailing him all this time. Yunwoo, chewing on an apple, said he was simply curious about how Yumyong had grown so strong. Yumyong looked uncertain, not sure whether taking his brother along was a good idea, but eventually answered while walking ahead that all he had done was take care of his body and that strength would come naturally with time. Yunwoo quickly caught up and asked where they were headed. Yumyong told him they were going to the black market. Yunwoo was stunned, pointing out that the black market was infamous for dealing in illegal goods and for being full of people who followed their own rules. Yumyong replied that in the demon sect, the term illegal didn't apply. It was more that there were certain things the sect didn't want regular people to find out, so they kept them hidden. In essence, the black market operated under the control of one of the major clans. The place they were headed to was the Hidden Gold Pavilion, the center of the black market. Once they arrived and people inside the pavilion gathered, they welcomed Yamong and his brother, asking why they had come. Yamong, in a sarcastic tone, said it was obvious they were there for something shady and requested to see the person in charge. The man he addressed gave him a sly look and introduced himself as Ojong, the leader of the Hidden Gold Pavilion. Yumyang's tone instantly turned serious. He told Ojong that if he truly planned to deal with the eldest son of the Jin clan, a representative from the Saklan should have been present. Ojong was startled and asked how he knew about that. Yamong pretended to be confused, asking what he meant, then added, as if guessing, "Are you surprised I know this is the intelligence base of the Saklan?" Ojong's face turned pale at those words. He released his aura and demanded to know clearly this time where Yamong had gotten that information. But Yamong struck him across the face, saying he was incredibly rude and obviously lacked respect for his elders despite having no issue raising his hand against them. He asked how a mere servant of the Saklan dared to show killing intent toward him. Then he ordered him to reveal the weapon hidden in his clothes. At that moment, a young woman intervened, telling Yamong that he had done enough. She was Sabune, a direct descendant of the Saklan. She appeared shocked that Yamyang knew things even some members of her clan didn't and wondered if the Jin clan's intelligence network was stronger than theirs. She then asked what had brought him there. Yamong explained that recently strange things had been happening in the Red Lantern district and in the back alleys. He said the name that kept appearing was Dark Blood. At the mention of the name, both Sabune and Ojong looked stunned. Sabune asked how he had come across that information. He replied that one of the girls he had been spending time with had shared a lot with him. Sabune, now irritated, asked if all his information came from girls. Yamong clarified that dark blood was a disease that would soon spread across the demon sect. He added that someone was deliberately orchestrating these events. Sabune, her expression filled with sorrow, said that dark blood had originated from outside the sect. Despite all the support she'd received from her clan, they still couldn't trace its source. Their closest guess was that a subsidiary sect linked to one of the major clans was behind it. After hearing Sabune's explanation, Yamyang turned to his younger brother and said he had expected more precise intel from the Saklan's intelligence network. He then announced it was time to leave. But before they could, Sabune called out to him. Yamyang immediately realized his plan had worked. Turning around, he asked what she wanted. She replied that she had decided to share their findings with him and that they would send a representative to the Jin clan for further discussions. Yamong smiled, thanked her, and assured her that he would take full responsibility moving forward. Then he exited the pavilion. The scene then shifted to Yura, who was reflecting on a past conversation with her father. He had mentioned that Yamyang didn't seem to be fighting at full strength during their match. She had asked if he was sure Yamyang was taking the battle seriously. Her father replied that although it might sound odd, Yumyang's eyes weren't focused on victory or even the fight itself. His gaze had been fixed entirely on her. In the present, Yura emotionally admitted that hearing this from her father had made her start viewing Yamyang in a new light. The story then moved to Yunro Valley, a lawless area that most clans avoided at all costs. Yamyang told one of the Saklan's intelligence agents that to catch a tiger, one must enter its den. The agent nervously responded that they might end up being devoured in there. Yamyang replied that he could go report that cowardice to Sabune, prompting the agent to quickly apologize and follow silently. He then asked if Yamyang truly expected to gather intel in a place like this. Yamyang raised a finger to his nose and told him to watch closely. Sometimes it was actually easier to get information in places like these. Yamyang mentioned that he had a strong feeling someone had been watching them for quite some time. He added that if the surveillance continued once they moved deeper into the valley, he wouldn't just ignore it. Soon, they observed a large number of plants growing all around and began to wonder if someone had been cultivating them. The agent remarked that he felt an odd attraction to the place and said that even though they had been exiled from the sect, the valley gave off a strangely calming effect. Yamyang informed him that those plants were marijuana and it was clear someone from the inside was helping to maintain them. Suddenly, a group of men appeared and blocked their path. One of them made a mocking comment, saying they had a lot of nerve walking into the area with such confidence. He warned that if they didn't want any trouble, they should turn back right away. Yamyang thought to himself that everyone in the group, except the boy standing at the center, were just low-grade thugs. He responded with confidence, saying they weren't leaving as he had come to meet their leader. The leader of the group replied that he had originally considered letting them pass since they looked like nobles, but it seemed they were asking for trouble. He then ordered his men to attack, telling them they could break their arms or whatever else they liked. The agent, nervous, told Yumyong that fighting wasn't his area of expertise. Yumyong answered that he hadn't expected anything from him in the first place and added that if he were to die here, the rest of them would be in serious danger. As our MC was going towards his destination, we came to see an old man who was saying what a special occasion to think you would bring guests with you. As he was saying this, one of the disciples spoke and added, "I apologize, third elder." The third elder says it's an honor to meet a noble from one of the 6 clans. Yo, you young, hearing what the third elder said, replied mockingly, "But where exactly? If you guess correctly, I will grant you a generous reward in our clan's name." Hearing what you're saying, the elder in his mind, 6 clans equals wealth equals influence, now where could it be? He boldly asked, "Aren't you from Hidden Shadow Clan?" The old guy asked, "What made you think that?" He answered, "Well, if we trace back to our supplier, it's the Huan clan, and the Hidden Shadow SP clan has never had a good relationship with the Huan clan for generations." MC laughing slightly says, "Ah, so the heaven-shaking Huan clan were behind these bastards, and unfortunately you are wrong, my name is Jin Yumyong." Finding his real name, the elder gets shocked and speaks Demon Heaven Jin clan, and also the first young master, at that, I mean, with that physique, how is that possible? You defeated all of them. MC's assistant sees what he is doing and also sees the shock on the old man's face. She mentions, "What a moment, but is it okay to reveal your identity like this? What if they are the suppliers of the black clotted blood?" The old man, speaking in a firm tone, said, "If we squash them with my clan's power, that's the end of it, and what brings the Nobel of the Jin family to a place like this?" But in the background, we can see the elder sweating at the mention of black clotted blood. Yumyong, claiming, "I heard the source of the drug is here, so I want to hear a bit about it," and after that he threw a bag of money towards the third elder and said, "That is to lighten that tongue of yours a bit." The old man's eyes light up seeing the bag full of gold. He willingly opens his mouth and speaks, "So the black clotted blood is an item that comes from outside, and while it passes through here, it doesn't touch our hands. All we do is make drugs to supply to the Huan clan. We don't distribute it to the entertainment district or the alleys." MC asked, "Then who are the one distributing it?" It's the lower sect of the Julio, the Tyrant Wolf sect. They are the primary distributor." As they were talking, someone shouted while running, "There's a problem." Third elder, "It's the intruders." MC thinks long and hers and says, "Do you mean by us?" The scene takes us to Yura, who's standing among pile of dead body. One of the bandits runs to his boss and exclaimed, "Team leader, it seems that the young cult leader has appeared. Do." The leader, waking from his sleep, says, "Did you start drinking early in the morning?" The leader's name is Jayadin Jyangi, Orthodox Path Alliance spy, but squad's 17th team leader. The underling responded, "No, sir. Do you really think I could do something like that?" She had cut down about a dozen men who stood in her way in a single, sweeping strike, and those men were from none other than the venomous snail sect. The leader said, "Then even if she's not the young cult leader, she must be a major figure among the 6 clans, right?" Thinking it over, he continued, "Let's see, aside from the young cult leader, what women from the 6 clans wield that kind of power? There's Soya from the So clan, Sabidian from the Sa clan, and maybe the twins from the Pa clan." He paused, then added, "Surely it couldn't be the one we're targeting right now." Then he gave an order to gather the kids. The underling, full of energy, responded, "Yes. I'll call in the 17th team from the spy squad immediately." The leader corrected him, saying, "Not our kids, you idiot. I meant the killing demons dispatched from above. For a smooth supply of the black clotted blood, we need to call the killer squad." Meanwhile, Yura was watching Yumyong from behind a house when her subordinate warned, "If we get too close, we might get caught." Yura replied, "I know. And this is a huge cannabis cultivation area. Why has our cult left such a place untouched? Don't you want to know?" Her subordinate explained, "It's because it's a necessary material for the Huan clan's formations. Also, by leaving the defenses loose here, they aim to lure in external intruders and eliminate them easily." Hearing that, Yura added, "Did Jin Yumyong come here already knowing all of that? Keep up the pursuit." Her subordinate, baffled, whispered, "Young cult leader, why?" Yura spoke, "I want to understand what that guy is thinking. I kind of like the way he thinks." Then she added, "His lordship once told me that since I naturally have many enemies, learning to distinguish friend from foe is essential." In the background, her subordinate, clearly impressed, thought to himself, the young cult leader really cares about her role and responsibilities. Yura suddenly burst into wild laughter, startling her subordinate. She said, but above all, doesn't this seem fun? If a recluse really exists, there's a good chance he's hiding somewhere like this. I'd love to meet him just once. Let's go. Her subordinate exclaimed, there are plenty of recluses around. Like the elder from the Chon clan. Looking around, Yura remarked, but it's odd. Not only is there no recluse, but while anyone else could just walk in here, I keep getting blocked by someone. Yeomyung, frustrated, muttered, what recluse? That gaze I kept sensing, it was from the young cult leader, wasn't it? Ha! Then he turned to her and said, for now, let's go together. As they talked, some men suddenly appeared out of nowhere. One of them commented, this is wild. I didn't think the guy was telling the truth, but it turns out he was. With her hand on her chin, Yura remarked, here they. All you need to do is come along quickly. The other bandits, afraid, flee while saying, then please excuse us, please. Wifa says to her future husband that he looks like a beggar from the beggar clan. The MC replies, then we should spare that bastard. He seems to have a lot we can extract from him. And boy, oh boy, who would have thought we'd find a lead this quickly? Someone, using her brain, spoke, dark shadow, protective shadow, fist shadow. Yura, speaking to the MC's assistant, said, Bayan, assist me, will you? She opened her mask and responded, yes, young cult leader. Then she gave the order, dark butterflies, come forward and protect young master Jin Yeomyung. At her command, many women stood beside him, swords in hand, prepared to guard him. The man was more shocked than surprised at the sight of what followed. He murmured, Chilo, was Sa Bayan? The enemy leader smirked, ugh, that's a cult strategy. But none of your protective hall's escorts are at the peak level, young cult leader. On our side, however, we have an exceptional master who is at the peak. Yura mocked him and added, you sure know a lot about our cult, ahaha. Of course you do, especially when it comes to the Cheon family. Cheon family's masters, huh? Then listen closely, you insects, not a single one of you will make it out of this 100,000 great mountain alive. She spoke while releasing her aura, striking fear into everyone as they launched a hasty attack. Yura began slashing through the fighters like they were butter. She even felt joy at their helplessness and laughed while saying, you insects. The enemy leader, frustrated, muttered to himself, I can't let it end like this. He clenched his teeth and shouted at the MC, you. At the very least, I will kill you. With that, he launched an all-out attack. Yeomyung, watching the pathetic villain, laughed and commented, seriously? Can't he see how many guards I have right now? To act that recklessly, he must be stupid. But at the very moment the villain began his attack, all the bodyguards suddenly moved away, leaving Yeomyung alone, making him even more shocked. Meanwhile, as the villain shouted, Jin Yeomyung, die. Yeomyung thought, shit. Even if he's past his prime, he's still a peak-level expert. And it's too late to dodge. Drawing his sword, Yeomyung somehow managed to block the incoming axe strike. The blow was so powerful that he was sent flying. He remarked, man, I was supposed to look cool and now look at me, I'm on the ground. In his mind, he groaned, can't wait to hear the laughter. Yura's subordinates, clearly impressed, said, he blocked it. How is that possible? The MC, frustrated, shouted, why aren't you dead, you crazy psycho? You don't just say crap like that to someone, you should have had your skull split open and died right there. Hearing this, the villain was shocked. And as this intense exchange went on between the MC and the villain, Yura approached silently from behind and, in one swift move, cut the villain's head off. She commented, as expected, your level is more than enough to endure that. Yeomyung, dazed, muttered, what? So she was testing me on purpose. Then he shouted, well, are you satisfied now that you've confirmed my skill? Yura replied, very much so. You should know, the higher-ups often test people in ways like this. MC said, sure, but still. Bam! Heavenly Demon Divine Cult. The Murim spy leader, caught and desperate, shouted, damn it! Just kill me already. Yeomyung responded, kill you? Why would I do that to someone who's about to provide valuable testimony on the black-colored blood? The leader replied, finally, what are you talking about? Black spot blood. He added, say what you want, but I guess I really am part of the demonic cult after all. While I might have slacked off on martial arts, there were a few techniques I was highly motivated to master. You know, especially the tendon-ripping bone lock. I practiced that one very thoroughly. Hearing Yeomyung's words, The leader's face turned pale in fear. MC, delighted, said, "Please stay quiet, okay? This is my first time doing this for real, and I'd like to enjoy it a bit. Now then, why don't we start off nice and easy?" Meanwhile, Yura was speaking with Madame Sa. "Sorry about that. I dragged you into this unnecessarily." She replied, "It's fine. Young Master Jean accepted your apology after all." Madame Sa, pointing toward MC, asked, Young Master Jean?" Yura responded, "HM? What is it, Miss Black Flying Seventh Tiger?" She continued, "If young Master Jean manages to pass the young cult leader's test all the way through, what will you do then?" Yura answered, "Then I suppose I'll try chasing one of the dreams I once gave up on." As Yomyung continued interrogating the prisoner, the man spoke in fear. "I'll tell you everything I know. Just please, stop doing this." MC said, "Yai, hang in there a bit longer." Yura muttered to herself, "I understand now, he's not doing all this just over a courtesan." Speak of the devil, and he appeared before her. He said, "My dear leader, that guy Jian Myangi really is from the beggar gang. His superior seems to have partnered with someone from the Cheon clan, but even Jian Myangi doesn't know who it is." Hearing that, Yura exclaimed, "The Cheon clan is involved in the drug case? And the men he brought with him came from the hidden trace manor in Gurya Fortress." Madame Sa added, "The third elder mentioned Gurya Fortress too. Hidden Trace Manor is a faction established 50 years ago by a retired member of the Ghost Slayer unit." Yura, confused, asked, "Ghost Slayer? Who are they?" Yomyung explained, "That's the same unit Guchil used to be part of." He continued, "Yes, it was the Cheon clan's elite assassination unit. It's been disbanded now, but it used to be known as the Demon Emperor's Ghost Slayer unit." MC suggested, "Young cult leader, I believe it would be best if you returned for now. Ever since the ambush, this situation has gone far beyond what we can manage alone. And considering how these people operate in cells, Hidden Trace Manor probably isn't even their main base." Pointing in a direction, he added, "If they lose contact, they'll erase all traces and vanish." Lady Sa asked, "What will you do now, young Master Jean?" MC replied, "A few variables have come up, but I'll start again from the lower sect, like the Tyrant Wolf sect, for example." Yura mentioned there was a better way. The issue, she pointed out, was that whether it's law enforcement, the courts, or anyone else, no one really has the time to assemble a full force for an assault, right? Yomyung nodded. "That's right." Yura then suggested, "Then I'll go to them myself. If it's an official visit by the young cult leader, they won't be able to pull anything shady so openly." Yomyung responded, "No. I can't let you risk your life over something like this." Yura spoke firmly, "You think this is nothing?" The MC replied, "Compared to the value of your life? Yes, it is nothing." Yura then said, "But because of me, your plan got thrown off. I just want to make up for that." Yomyung in his thoughts said, "This is why I fell for her." The scene then shifts to a new location. We are now at the outer edges of the 10,000 mountains. Suddenly, Yura kicked the entrance of the sect with full force and walked right in. The third master of Hidden Trace Manor was stunned as he witnessed this. He exclaimed, "What the hell? The young cult leader, why is she here?" In his mind, he thought in a commanding tone, "I was just about to pull out after the mess in Hidden Tear Valley. Never thought our kidnapping target would waltz in herself." The third leader, putting on a cunning and flattering smile, called out to Yura, "Please, come. Welcome, young cult leader. To what do we owe the honor of your visit?" Yura replied, "Your grandfather was part of the Demon Emperor's Ghost Slayer unit, wasn't he? I realized I've been neglecting those who once served the Cheon clan. I thought it was time to fix that. And you all look quite busy, though." As she spoke with the third leader, everyone was giving her sidelong glances. She remarked, "It almost looks like you're packing up to leave in a hurry. Aren't you going to offer a guest a cup of tea?" The third leader laughed and responded, "In the 10,000 mountains, the young cult leader is never just a guest. Please come inside. I'll guide you personally." As she began following the master inside, a group of assassins kept their eyes trained on her. They whispered among themselves. One asked, "What should we do?" The assassination master replied, "Since we've been given another chance, we must capture her alive this time." The subordinate replied with a nod, "Understood." Yura commented, "Judging by all the wear and tear around here, you must get quite a few visitors through this place." The old master laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha ha, now then, young cult leader, eh?" Suddenly, Yura shouted from behind, "Use proper honorifics, you arrogant bastard." He was baffled by what she said. "Kikiki," he chuckled mockingly. "We both know what's really going on here, so why pretend?" With that, his soldiers pointed their swords toward Yura. He said, "If you surrender quietly, I won't have to get rough with you." Yura replied, "Got it. Now I see your level clearly." The old master taunted her, "You catch one member of the life-slaying unit and suddenly think you're unstoppable? Don't assume this is all I've got." With that, the entire structure of the building began to transform. Yura, shocked, spoke, "Is this a mechanical formation technique?"